Greetings. This is a volcano and earthquake watch video for the time frame of April 30 through to May 5, 2015. There are two significant coronal hole formations on the solar corona, as well as powerful celestial influences and planetary alignments suggesting one or two earthquakes could be registered during this time frame to 7.5 magnitude. A significant earthquake was registered yesterday in the Fiji region, registered to 6.2 magnitude. The interesting factor was the depth, 537 kilometres officially. Now, these very deep quakes in this hotspot region tend to migrate towards Papua New Guinea, and that'll be the first area of focus for this earthquake watch. As mentioned, there are a series of coronal hole formations on the solar corona that may foreshadow the potential for significant earthquakes for the coming days. Focusing on the coronal hole formation in the central meridian, CH665, this could foreshadow a significant earthquake registered to 6.5 magnitude. There's also a very powerful magnetic filament that has let go over the last 24 hours. This has also produced a coronal hole, and this will also be featured in this watch. We're now looking at a series of stills of the solar corona and focusing on this coronal hole formation in the southern hemisphere. Looking at the 171, 193, 211 and 304 angstrom imagery reveals this coronal hole formation to be 2 to 7 degrees south latitude, and this fits perfectly to the hotspot earthquake in the Fiji region yesterday and the migration towards the Papua New Guinea region. A discovery was made back in 2011 of a hotspot located in the south of Fiji or the Fiji region with earthquakes registered over 400 kilometres in depth. Earthquakes tend to migrate in a northwesterly direction, a follow-up migration of similar magnitude to the initial earthquake in the hotspot zone. There have been over 1,000 earthquake occurrences that have been found with this migration zone. And now for the earthquake forecast, and as mentioned, focusing on the Papua New Guinea region for a possible 6.5 magnitude earthquake over the next 1 to 3 days, with specific areas of focus being the New Britain region, the New Ireland region, Eastern New Guinea, and just near the north coast of New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, as being the main areas of focus for a potential 6.5 magnitude earthquake from April 30 through to May 2nd. We're now focusing our attention to the northern hemisphere of the solar corona and this very strong coronal hole formation that has opened up over the last 72 hours, especially after the magnetic filament eruption that occurred yesterday. This coronal hole formation is currently unnumbered, but it is positive polarity and I feel harbours a potential for a foreshadow of an earthquake felt here on the Earth over the next 3 to 5 days, registered between 7.2 to 7.5 magnitude in the northern hemisphere. We're now looking at the still imagery. We see that from these images a very strong coronal hole formation has developed. Now, the key areas of focus will be centred between 27 to 36 degrees north latitude as a main area of focus for this potential 7.5 earthquake. We do note a very powerful active region located just past the central meridian, active region 12333. Now, this very strong coronal hole formation should become geo-effective or have its influences felt here on the Earth between May 3 through May 5. We're now looking at the important planetary alignments that are taking place between May 2nd and 3rd, which highlight this time period as volatile felt here on the Earth for potential strong earthquakes. Mercury-Earth-Saturn align on May 3rd at 8:34 UTC, but overshadowed by a heliocentric alignment between Venus, Mercury and Sun, which has coincided with very strong and powerful earthquakes felt here on the Earth in the past. We also need to note the position of Neptune almost forming a four-way alignment during this time frame. We're now looking at a heliocentric chart for May 3rd. This reveals very strong planetary geometry taking place. Not only do we have the two planetary alignments just mentioned represented as astrologically a grand cross, but we also have a series of planetary squares where planets will be aspected at 90 degrees to one another. This will affect magnetic portal connectivity between planets, and this suggests very strong high volatility in terms of seismicity felt here on the Earth, so we should see some strong earthquakes during this time frame. We're now looking at the latest ACE telemetry, where we see solar wind speeds currently at 305 kilometres a second. Now, when solar wind speeds are at these low levels, high potentials for strong earthquakes and very shallow earthquakes are possible, and this will remain the case over the next week or so. Now, we should see very volatile periods in terms of seismicity, and it's definitely a time frame we all need to watch and monitor, especially the first week of May. It is worth mentioning that a huge magnetic filament rotating the northeastern limb of the solar corona over the last 3 days has just erupted off the solar surface, producing a massive coronal mass ejection. It does appear that this coronal mass ejection will not have an earthbound component, and that'll keep solar wind speeds sitting at around 300 kilometres a second and keep the earthquake threat at very high. So I'm concerned about strong earthquakes felt during this time period. Now, this coronal mass ejection released from the Sun and the energetic blast of the magnetic filament itself could be indicative of a volcanic eruption for the Northern Hemisphere during this watch period as well. It's definitely worth keeping a close note of during this watch. And now for the earthquake forecast regarding this large coronal hole formation positioned in the Northern Hemisphere of the solar corona as mapped symmetrically to the Earth, focusing on areas 27 to 36 degrees north latitude, with a key focus with an Asian profile would be the western Sichuan China region. Now, this is a concern of a strong earthquake registered to 7.0 to 7.5, and this could also be an indication of an aftershock for the already devastated Nepal region. My second area of concern will be for the Japan region, specifically isolating the southern portions of Japan for this potentially very strong earthquake. Areas of focus will be Kyushu, Japan. The Sakurajima volcano could also be activated significantly during this time frame as well. Near the coast of western Honshu, Japan, or the Nankai Trough could be activated, or further east, the regions of Izu Islands could see this very strong earthquake potential registered to 7.5 hit the Japan region. And the third and final area of concern for this watch will be for the west coast of North America, specifically isolating regions of the Gulf of California. Southern California, Baja California will be the next area of concern, as it does stretch from the regions of 27 to 36 degrees north latitude, which does fit the profile for a significant earthquake for the time frame of May 2nd through May 5. It is worth noting that the May and June newsletters are now currently available on the solarwatcher.net website, and anyone purchasing the May newsletter will receive the June newsletter absolutely free. Now, I am expecting significant earthquakes to be registered during the month of May and June, especially May 15, for a powerful earthquake in the Coronal Islands is forecasted and definitely worth keeping close track of. For more information, please visit solarwatcher.net. And that concludes this volcano and earthquake forecast video for the time frame of April 30 through to May 5th, 2015. I am expecting 2 significant earthquakes to be registered during this time frame, one in Papua New Guinea and one for the Northern Hemisphere registered possibly to 7.5 magnitude. Thanks for watching.